This lowlife's about to get what he deserves. Life behind bars. Officer Dwayne the Hammer Dunlop barked in open court, his voice booming like a war drum. Want to learn how to talk like a human, or prefer mumbling like a street rat? Next to him, Officer Greg Gator Samuels folded his arms, grinning. That suit and watch. Knockoffs. He probably borrowed him from someone who reads. The courtroom murmured. No one stopped them. Marcus Thorne stood silent in his tailored charcoal suit, wrists still marked from the cuffs. He stared forward, dignified, still unreadable. The judge flipped through documents as if he couldn't hear point 3 days earlier. Marcus had parked his luxury sedan in front of a shuttered bakery in Willow Creek, briefcase in hand, en route to a confidential meeting at Sterling Tower. 2 officers noticed him. Seconds later, they approached with the practiced swagger of hunters. Hands where I can see him. He complied. Polite. Calm. Unarmed. But his name, his car, his skin, they didn't add up. This car yours? Samuel sneered. Yes. Is there a problem? Dunlop shoved him against the hood. That watch don't match your face. Neither does this ride. Marcus calmly suggested a verification call to his office. They weren't interested. He was cuffed and shoved into the cruiser. His briefcase, still shut, was bagged like evidence. At the station, mockery rained down. Nice costume. You playing banker for Halloween? They jeered. He asked to call his lawyer. They told him to wait. He waited for 3 silent days. Now, in court, the spectacle continued. Dunlop postured like a prosecutor. You think you're British with that accent? Closest you got to Europe is a bootleg soccer match at your cousin's. Samuels added, bet that tie came from a thrift store. What's next, a book deal? I don't have a public defender, Marcus said, voice steady. Oh, you fancy then? Dunlop laughed. Got a yacht named after you, too? A woman in the back, black and middle-aged, rose and quietly left. Only Marcus noticed. You're lucky we brought you in alive, Samuels muttered. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact he assumed no one would question. Then Marcus spoke. His voice wasn't loud, just precise. Are you finished? Samuels chuckled. Dunlop leaned in. You're lucky this isn't the street. Marcus nodded, then faced the judge. With your permission, I request the court be informed of my identity. The confidentiality order protecting it was lifted 2 hours ago. The judge paused, then looked to a silent man seated beside the prosecutor. Dark suit, small lapel pin. He nodded. Proceed, the judge said. Dunlop frowned. Samuels blinked. Marcus stepped forward, the sound of his polished shoes echoing across the floor like distant thunder. He opened the briefcase the officers had confiscated. No one saw how he retrieved it. Inside, a single folder. He lifted it and revealed an insignia. The judge flinched. State your identity, the judge ordered, now fully alert. My name is Marcus Delroy Thorne. Federal Credential 746C. I am head of a classified task force under the Department of Justice's Organized Crime Division. He paused. Until 48 hours ago, my identity was protected by federal order during an active operation. Silence. What? No. This is a joke, Dunlop stammered. Samuels stood frozen. Marcus continued, unshaken. I was illegally detained without cause, denied legal rights, mocked, and threatened by 2 officers of the Philadelphia Police Department. The man with the pen approached the bench, handed over documents. The judge's face turned ashen. This can't be, Dunlop whispered. Marcus stepped forward, not to threaten, but to be seen. When you target someone based on color, class, or clothing, it's profiling. But sometimes you pick the wrong person. The judge looked like a man waking from a dream. The air conditioner buzzed. No one spoke. Then a journalist leaned forward. The man in the front row stood. The silent man with the pen whispered something to the judge. He nodded, and Dunlop took a step back. An extraordinary hearing is hereby opened under Article 17, Federal Jurisdiction, the judge declared, his voice now quivering under the weight of consequence. From this moment, no press may record or disseminate any portion of this hearing without direct authorization. Cameras clicked off. One journalist whispered a protest, but no one responded. What the hell is going on? Dunlop muttered, sweat blooming on his brow. Samuels stood pale, breath shallow, silenced by a force he couldn't mock away. Marcus didn't look at them. His eyes remained on the bench. I request immediate proceedings against Officers Dunlop and Samuels for unlawful detention, obstruction of a federal investigation, and racially motivated abuse of authority. Dunlop exploded. This is a setup. I didn't know who you were. That's exactly the point, Marcus replied calmly. You don't need to know who someone is to treat them with basic dignity. The man with the dark lapel pin stepped forward and laid down a sealed folder. Agent Thorne was operating undercover in a high-level federal case. His detention jeopardized not only the mission, but his life. No, Samuels whispered, visibly shaking. Yes, the agent replied without hesitation. Two silent men from the back, plain clothes, expressionless, stepped forward. They moved with the quiet authority of federal power. Without flair or words, they handcuffed Samuels. Then Dunlop. The same metallic click Marcus had endured echoed again, now shackling the ones who'd wielded it unjustly. You can't do this. I've served for 15 years. I have a family, Dunlop shouted, his voice cracking. He has a family too, said a voice from the crowd. The black woman who had exited earlier was back, her eyes wet, her voice unwavering. Samuels didn't resist. Dunlop struggled until a single, sharp command from an agent made him freeze. The judge watched silently. His gavel remained untouched. He didn't need it. Marcus stood steady, his briefcase closed. During those 72 hours, he said, turning toward the room, I was denied counsel, contact with my agency, and even basic acknowledgement of my legal rights. Not for a weapon, not for suspicious behavior, for how I looked and where I parked. Murmurs stirred the courtroom, but none dared interrupt him. The man with the pin stepped forward again. Body cam footage, radio logs, and internal call records from the precinct confirm Agent Thorne's version. These materials have been submitted to the Attorney General. The judge nodded slowly, as if finally catching up to the magnitude of what sat before him, that Marcus's voice carried weight without raising volume. I came here to dismantle crime syndicates capable of infiltrating government institutions. But what struck deepest wasn't the crime. It was the certainty in two officers' eyes that no one would ever hold them accountable. He looked at Dunlop, now red-eyed and shackled, then at Samuels, whose head had lowered like a broken monument. I'm not seeking an apology, Marcus said. I'm seeking a precedent. So the next man who gets profiled doesn't have to wait 3 days for his humanity to be acknowledged. The judge, swallowing hard, finally lifted his gavel. I authorize immediate federal custody of Officers Dunlop and Samuels pending further charges, he said. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck. Marcus didn't smile. He picked up his briefcase and walked out with the same dignity he'd entered with, unapplauded, but unmistakably victorious. At the Philadelphia Police Department, tension cloaked the building like fog. There were no reporters outside, no press statements, but the silence was louder than outrage. A call from Washington had come the night before. Concise, irrefutable. An investigation had begun, not just into Dunlop and Samuels, but into their precinct, their superiors, their paperwork, and every complaint buried under procedural review. Shifts were audited. Body cam archives reopened. Officers were summoned for interviews they'd never thought they'd face. The weight came down quietly, but it came. And at the center of it all was a name spreading in whispers. Marcus Delroy Thorne. He didn't appear on the news. Gave no interviews. He returned to D.C. without applause. Folder after folder landed on his desk. He reviewed each one, signed what needed signing, resumed his field work. But in every major meeting, when discussions of profiling or misconduct arose, someone would mention him. Not for what he said, but for what he did. Back in Willow Creek, the once-closed bakery reopened with a sign above the counter. Don't judge a customer by their clothes or their face. You don't know who they are. More importantly, you don't know what they've been through. And the other officers from that day, they weren't arrested, but they were reassigned, sent to sensitivity training. Some resigned. The badge began to feel heavier. Marcus never said it aloud. But as he reviewed the next operation folder on his desk, One thought echoed quietly in his mind. I wasn't the exception. I was just the one they couldn't break. Not everyone gets that chance. And with that, he picked up his coat and walked back into the work.